It's a beautiful late afternoon here in Dakar, Senegal, and it's been a great experience here so far, except for two things. There's a little bit of petty theft here is the number one, and the second thing, yes, look at this finger, it's the bribery. I had to deal with it. So let's start first with number one. One Sunday afternoon, Wendy and I were enjoying a nice grilled fish barbecue at the club. And when we got back, everything was fine. Left the boat unlocked. The next day, I looked for my headphones to do some video editing with. And I can't find them. Okay, they were cheap headphones I bought about 2.5 years ago. I got them fixed and no big deal, but they disappeared. Next thing you know, Wendy's little iPod things disappeared. I was like, what? This is strange. Could somebody have stolen them? We looked and looked, couldn't find them. A couple days later, I decided to go. I land, and I grabbed my hat. And for some strange reason, I had two hats, and there's only one left. I'm like, come on, man. They've stolen them. Headphones, iPods, and two little hats. Like, oh man, this sucks. A couple days later, I go to shave. I just bought a nice, cool little razor. I really liked it. It's gone too. Somebody came aboard and took some things. Now, they didn't take any of those old phones I kept that fell in the water that I use as bait, you know? They could take those, but no. So we're pretty pissed off. So I've been locking the door ever since, locking everything up. The other thing, while I was on land, Wendy was aboard. She was chilling out. I came back after a few beers with my friend. She was sleeping. The next day we talked, and I'm like, oh, telling her people I met and what I was doing, and kind of abandoned her. And she was like, oh yeah, no problem. She likes being on the boat by herself. And then she tells me that late afternoon, 3 young boys, adolescent teenagers, trying to climb aboard from the sides of the boat. I was like, are you kidding me? She got up there and sent them on their way, but I was kind of like, hey, what the? And then it turns out, as the past few days, there's been a little gang. Boys from another big neighborhood or something that have been either swimming out to the boats and trying to get on. As it were, whilst I was on board, I hear this noise outside, and I look out my back bathing platform. I see some kid, like, holding on there, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? In French, and he spoke, and he said, no, sorry, sir, I'm tired, and I swim out here, and I need to rest. And I'm like, all right, I've heard that could kind of happen. And I was like, is it you that climbed aboard and stole my shit? No, sir. No, I just need to rest. So I'm like, all right. So I let him rest. He got back in the water. I'm like, take it easy. Swim on your back. Last thing I wanted is to rescue this kid from drowning in this disgusting water. So, but he swam back with his buddies, and the next thing I know, I hear him screaming from the beach. Said, hey, sir, I made it. Right after the episode where the boys tried to climb aboard the boat, when Wendy was on, they went on this other boat right next door. One of the guys who was taking care of it was on there, and he smacked him. You know, told him to get the fuck out. And it's unfortunate. We think it's just kids from summer vacation, and they're out here just being doofus teenagers, climbing on boats and grabbing whatever they could and stuff, and we want to put a stop to that. So that's the one little unfortunate thing. The other interesting story, I got arrested in Dakar. Yup, police nabbed me. And here's the story. We met some Cape Verdean friends here that knew Wendy, and we've seen them here and there, and they've come over to the club and had a beer with us. And one night we decided to all go out together, go clubbing.
We bought positive vibes in the form of finches you could set free for 50 cents each. Ironic that we set the birds free, and moments later, we were about to be caged.
We decided to go home early because maybe you wanted to cruise around this bay, with the boat. So let's go home early and get up early in the morning. And one of our friends said, hey man, what do you think about smoking a quick joint, one for the road, before we go? And I'm like, yeah, all right. So we walked down a few streets away from the busy, nightlife. Wendy and I have to go take a leak, and so we hide behind a car while our friends are like rolling up a spliff. And Wendy finished, and we sit down, and before we can light it, this car stops in front of us, and like 5 dudes come out displaying their badges just like in the movies, just like in America, except it's black dudes going after a white dude, and Cape Verdeans who are almost white. We're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble now. They're like, what you're doing is, prohibited. You're not allowed to do that. It's against the law, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, shit. Uh-oh, okay. Next thing you know, they got me handcuffed to the other Cape Verdean guy. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Wait a minute. I didn't do anything. I didn't have anything. And to boot, I did not have anything. It was a friend of mine who had brought a little bit of weed to roll a joint. And then also they started looking through Wendy's purse, and they're like, you've got crystal. And they took out 2 little salt crystals out of her purse that had broken off from a salt rock crystal she had put in her purse as a good luck item to give to somebody. So there was generally salt, and she's like, it's salt. And you're like, no, it's crystal. Like, really, come on. Anyways, gonna take us to the police station. I'm like, wait a minute, you can't take us, and like, you can't leave the girl, the 2 girls here with the one guy. There's no friggin' way. I can't. I'm responsible for her. I'm the captain of a boat, and she's not just gonna stay here in the street and leave her. She doesn't know where to go. She doesn't speak the language. I got really upset, and they're like, argh, and I'm like, you're gonna be responsible, and they're like, no, she'll come with us. Don't worry, get in the car. And he stuffed us in this car, 4 of us in the back of a car, like a small SUV, and they start going on and on and on that we're in deep trouble, that we're gonna have to go talk to the prosecutor, and we have to get paid for a lawyer and all this stuff, and like driving forever, and they're like being intimidating. I had nothing on me whatsoever, and it's like, oh, does that mean that your friend's the one who had it? And I'm like, I don't know, he said he got it from somebody that came out of a club or something, and there's no way I was gonna rat out my friend. I am not a rat. So even though I just met him, and you can sense the intimidation, and they're trying to push us and stuff like that, and I'm like, I know where this is going. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to talk my way out of this. Finally, we stopped somewhere, not at the police station, no, and my friend and I stuffed in this car, really squeezed in. It's hot and shit, and we're like, guys, we can't breathe in here. I'm getting claustrophobic. And my friend's oh. And I finally opened the door, and they're like, oh, do you want us to get us some water? And I'm like, yeah, here's $1 to buy some water. It comes back with some water. My friend's pouring it over his head, and I'm drinking it. I was parched. The main guy starts lecturing me. He's like, sir, you are one of the elders here. I can tell you're an elder here, and we have respect for our elders here, and this is why we're being cool with you. And I'm like, oh, I see. Now he's softened me up after the intimidation. So he's going on, and I don't know the rules here, and I've asked, and I travel around in a lot of places, and there's different laws and rules about weed and stuff, and in my country it's basically legal. In America, and it's not legal here. I'm like, oh, yeah, sorry, I'm like, well, maybe they'll decriminalize it. Never. I'm like, okay, get mad. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult you, and I respect the rules and cultures here, and that's why I travel. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm very pleased with the people here. I think it's wonderful, and now I feel intimidated, and I don't want to, step on the toes of the local rules. And finally, this guy looking up front, in front of the car, and it seems like there's some kind of activity in front, like a fight or something, and he gets up and leaves. And I'm like, oh, cool, a diversion, The thought came to my mind, just run. But I'm like, no, I don't know if my hip can take it. Anyways, this other guy's like, all right, so, what are we going to do? And I'm like, yeah, what are we going to do? I'm like, can we arrange something? Can we work something out? And so I'm walking on eggshells here. How do I talk about the subject of possible bribe without being insulting or not saying that? And so I'm like, well, is there anything we could do for you guys so we can, arrange this? Can we buy you a drink, or can we buy something for your children or something like that? He's like, well, what do you got in mind? And then I'm like, all right, we got it. Well, I don't know. I've got some money on me. Can I give you some money and help out your family? And he's like, well, how much you got? And I had like about $70. And I'm like, well, I need 20 to get a cab to pick up my girl, Wendy, and to come back. I can only spare, 50. I'm like, all right, what about your friend? I'm like, talking to my friend. He's like, what do you say? What do you say? I'm like, I think we can buy our way out of this. How much money you got on you? He had like $100. I'm like, he's got some money. How about if we each give you 50? The guy's got, he's got 100. Tell him I want 80, and then we're good. So I'm like, he wants 80. So we ended up having to pay $130 bribe. The guy's like behind a car counting the money, and he's like, yeah, okay. All right. Next thing you know, they're like, hey, buddies, man. One of the other cops is like, hey, I'm a sailor too. I was 7 years in the Senegalese Marine, and all of a sudden they're all friendly and our buddies. They flagged down a taxi for us to get us out of there, and there it was. I'm like, oh, geez. Well, anyways, it was an expensive experience, but it was, I guess, worth the $50 I spent. So if you're in Senegal, don't smoke weed out in the street. Man, they picked me out as the guy. We had some money and stuff, and they knew they could get a good bribe out of us. I was talking to some people here, and I say, if they were Senegalese guys, they would have gotten away with paying maybe $10 or something. We were racially profiled by the police, but the other way around. Oh man. So
Hello, welcome to Galopin. These are our studios, man. This is where the magic happens. It's humble, but it gets the job done. It's because of the great people like you on Patreon who make this happen. This Living Adventure series. I hope you'll join our community. We've got some extra perks like live updates, news, photos, videos, and I've even taken a stab at writing some short stories which are not for general audiences on YouTube. And our friend Graham from Australia set up a WhatsApp chat to aptly called Galopin's Cockpit. Guys from all over have joined, and it's this community that's contributing to the continuation of this Living Adventure series. If not, you can always watch us for free on YouTube. Make sure to give us a like or a dislike, make a comment, make your opinion heard. I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching this episode of Voyage, a real Living Adventure series. It's not fake, baby.